Hi there. Sorry I'm a bit late to the party. It's coming on to a month since that horrific day that should have changed a lot of us forever. I generally find it a little bit tacky when people talk to a camera about a current issue to stay relevant or whatever, but to put it mildly, I'm not okay. I haven't found it easy falling asleep lately, and every day when I wake up, I have to find a new way to reprocess what happened. And so since day one, I've been compiling my thoughts and feelings and a plea to whoever will listen. I do apologize if it's a bit long-winded. I tried to compress it as much as I could, but if I'd have taken any longer editing it, it wouldn't be relevant anymore. I feel that what I have left is long, but is relevant to me and my story, and I just hope that it's interesting enough for at least someone out there to stay to the end. Sorry if I sound robotic at any point. I have written this down and I am reading off a script I wrote but don't remember off by heart, and my reading comprehension isn't so great, so if I don't sound natural, my apologies. These are all my serious thoughts. So let me get into it. I'm an Ola Chadash, Jewish migrant to Israel. I've been here almost 5 years. I came in January 2019. Since then, I found living here to be turbulent, to say the least. Being an Englishman who hates rain, I moved to the southernmost city, the Red Sea resort of Eilat, where the winters are mild, summers hot, and rain seldom. I do quite enjoy the lack of rain, the beaches and desert hills, quite the contrast from London's concrete jungle. But prior to my move, I was warned by many a friend that living in Israel comes at some cost. I wasn't sure quite what they meant at the time, but now I feel I've paid my share and then some. Within about a year, I was subject to lockdowns, curfews, and restricted travel. It was a major blow to my new life, as I was just starting to make friends and suddenly no one was leaving their houses. As a young single man, I felt a bit robbed of social, financial, and leisure opportunities. Hard to place blame, as there was a global pandemic, and for better or for worse, Israel had some of the most annoying policies. 2021, easing on the COVID policies, and then rockets, riots, violence in the streets. I shrugged it off as a nothing, really. Locals told me it was the worst they've seen in years, but I guess I thought, like with English weather, people never miss a beat to rave about how it hasn't snowed like this in years, having forgotten what it was like just 2 years ago. 7th of October, 2023. In the morning, I hear rumors of a flare-up at the Gaza border, and as usual, I try to brush it off. As the hours and days pass and the images start circulating, my body is filled with a bitter dread. This is clearly something Israelis are not used to, and me, I'm sad, anxious, scared for what I'll hear next, but most of all, a white-hot anger is raging from the core of my being. The events of that day should make anybody angry, but far beyond the anger at the simple fact of those heinous sins, it was the culmination of years and years of a burning frustration. A frustration that's lived in me since I was 13. I was raised following the conflict in close detail, supporting and praying for Israel, as most Jews. I remember with some clarity feeling a deep sense of helplessness, paling in comparison, but reminiscent to what I've been feeling the past few weeks. Back then, I couldn't imagine the feeling of loss being any greater. I'm talking about the disengagement of Gush Katif in 2005. The only block of settlements left within the Gaza Strip at the time. I watched in horror as these residents were broadcast on TV, dragged out of their houses by IDF soldiers, making this whole region now vacant for our enemy. It made no sense. Giving up land to the enemy can only bring about our destruction. Sure enough, I was proven right when just 2 years later, the most militant group yet, Hamas, was controlling the Strip and shelling parts of southern Israel with makeshift rockets. Over the years, I learned to be nuanced. Although all my adolescent predictions were realized, people older than myself talked about prior difficulties I'd have been too young to remember. They'd say that these rockets barely do damage, and the kinds of attacks we had before the disengagement, when the Gazans were among us with no clear borders, were worse. I started to wonder if things were truly less black and white than I once thought. Yet every time skirmishes developed out of Gaza, and let's face it, since 2005, most of the trouble had been coming from Gaza, there would be nagging questions in the back of my mind of how we allowed Gaza to become such a problem for us. As was the case in 2014, when still living in England, I found myself sheltering from rockets while visiting family in Jerusalem. Now they were traveling as far as Jerusalem, Tel Aviv, and even disrupting flights at Ben Gurion Airport. I thought, well, if this is what they're capable of now, how much longer can we keep flushing money down the toilet on missile defenses while keeping them cooped up in their little corner, stockpiling equipment and plotting our demise? 2021. Rockets are flying way into the north of the country, and there's even scares they might reach Eilat in the far south, where I'm now living. As I said earlier, this didn't scare me in any existential way. I figured this is the kind of thing Israelis go through now and then, and for the most part, actually being killed or hurt was relatively rare. I was frustrated, however, at how all our lives were disrupted once again in this vicious cycle. My parents called from England to check I was safe. I assured them that despite threats, Eilat was far from any affected area. I'm physically secure, but my demeanor is being tested, I said, explaining my frustration that ultimately nothing will be done. My mother said, "What do you mean nothing? We're bombing them back to the Stone Age." "Yeah, and then we're going to leave them to build back stronger," I said, cataloging all the advances I've seen over the years, how each time they came back with better rockets, more destructive technique, and how it's cost us more lives, more money on Iron Dome technology, etc. She asked, "Well, what do you want?" I said simply, "Annex Gaza." Then my dad chimed in and said, "If we annex Gaza and send soldiers in, more Jews will die." Never in my life could I have even imagined hating being right so damn much. And believe me when I say it, for the last 3 weeks, every day facing the reality all over again that what happened, kills a part of me. Never in my life have I rued the day I got to say, "Told you so," but I told you so. Fact is, with no disengagement of Gush Katif, there'd be no Hamas. No Hamas means no massacre. Yet it never ceases to amaze me how too many Jews will insist on being blind pansies. I've heard people say, "Oh, it was Ben Gvir's fault for going up to the Temple Mount." Get the fuck out! We're going to let them dictate where we can walk in our own country? Even if this was a direct response to his actions, sooner or later, they'd have found something else to get butthurt about. I say if someone threatens to kill you for speech, expression, or where your Jewish feet walk, in the name of basic freedom, do it. Or else, how much further will you let their sensitive little feelings restrict your life? Others are saying, we don't know what could have happened if the disengagement hadn't happened. Well, that's just intellectual laziness of the highest order. I've never heard anyone say, for all we know, if Neville Chamberlain hadn't given Hitler Czechoslovakia, it could have been worse. It's unpredictable. At age 13, I was driven by my upbringing in a denomination of Judaism that saw it as a sin to give up a square inch of land to an enemy, to appease them or otherwise. As I grew older, I started to wonder if a fundamentalist interpretation of religious text is really good military strategy. When I was 13, I sneered at those in support of the disengagement as the Gazans burnt down the remains of Gush Katif, celebrating the obliteration of any remnants of Jewish life. I'd say, look at them. You think they want peace? Now, come to think of it, I've never heard anyone suggest they did want peace, or that the disengagement would somehow butter them up. It seems the motivation for the disengagement was security, not peace. Now, despite what many pro-Palestinian activists like to say on repeat, Hamas maintain that Gaza isn't occupied, that they managed to defeat the occupiers and chase them out. Now, isn't that true? They were successful in being such a headache to us, we just left, ran away from our problem, build a wall, they're over there, we're over here, problem solved. But you give them an inch, they'll take a mile. The doctrine I was raised on, not looking so backward and extreme in retrospect. The question is where we go from here. And I'm sure I speak for many when I say that we must deliver some serious retribution, the liking of which will assure that this or anything like it never happens again. Netanyahu has vowed to, in his words, reshape the region that will be remembered for decades. Well, decades isn't enough. We need to reshape it for eternity. And the only way to do that, with a phrase I'm coining, to De-Palestine. Completely annihilate all hope of there ever being a Palestinian state. And we do that right the fuck now. Or this will happen again. This massacre for them will be glorified forever, and no doubt too soon, copycat attempts will ensue from those trying to emulate their beloved martyrs. Unless we make it so that it is what ended their entire objective. You think they didn't know they'd be hell to pay? They don't mind. It doesn't matter how many of their people we kill. They love death. They keep saying it. And more death at the hands of Israel, more PR for them. I hear people asking how this happened in the first place. Complacency, we had too much security in other places, neglecting Gaza. Take your pick, it doesn't matter. I'm no military expert. I couldn't tell you if this was a major cock-up on our side or just an absolute genius and unpredictable strategy on theirs. Point is, for years and years, they've been trying every which way to destroy our infrastructure, kill, maim, and strike fear into as many as possible. Do anything under the sun to disrupt us, and if they die without hurting a soul, oh well, still a martyr and a hero. It's not totally inconceivable that after 18 years and some 2 million disposable people to experiment with, someday, through careful planning, luck, or a mixture of both, they'd yield big results. Inflicting destruction and sabotage at every turn is far easier than providing adequate protection and preserving that which many are determined to destroy. And frankly, we've done a damn good job of it thus far. We also shouldn't be surprised at the level of brutality and pinpoint targeting of the most vulnerable, women, the elderly, and actual babies. They've been saying they wanted to do this for years, and for years they've been doing it, albeit on a smaller scale. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. Tell me exactly what you plan to do and consistently deliver on your promise over a span of 75 years, and yet I keep leaving you the land and ability to continue. Well, at this point, I freaking deserve it. And just to clarify, throughout this monologue, when I say them, I don't mean Hamas. For the love of God, stop saying Hamas. We're at war with all of them. Every mortal soul walking the globe who's into the Palestinian cause is singing from the same hymn sheet. I didn't see a single one of them, not one, wholeheartedly and unequivocally condemn the massacre in its immediate aftermath 4 weeks ago. Not without some pivot to, but Israel will retaliate and then the Jewy Western media will be silent. If you need any more proof that there's no just cause for a Palestinian state, look at the characters peddling it. The whole concept is nothing short of another evil, libelous excuse for Jew hatred. And we, the Jews, we need to put an end to it. Us. With or without Gentile support. No more waiting on some kind of Schindler to come rescue us. For as long as there's any hope for a Palestinian state, they have what to attack us for. And as far as I can tell, on that fateful Saturday, Hamas literally gave us an ultimatum. Conquer all the territory now, or have 1,500 of your citizens' murders glorified forever while inviting more. I can just hear them snickering. And the Jews might actually be dumb enough to drop a few firecrackers on us and leave us all to do it again. Our sitting Prime Minister has long been steadfast for a two-state solution and hasn't gone back on it. I know his vision, as he stated, we must have full military control of the borders. Well, we had full control of the Gaza border, didn't we? I say we got a damn good taste of what a Palestinian state would look like. Are we done, or are we still thirsty for more? Who will govern Palestine? The PLO? PLO representative Hussam Zomlot refused point blank to condemn the bloodthirsty rampage on a CNN interview. Great partners in peace. This guy is the UK's ambassador to Palestine. Even before Palestine exists, their state representatives put a giant stamp of approval on Jewish genocide. Let me reiterate. Even before Palestine exists, their state representatives put a giant stamp of approval on Jewish genocide. Better. But Bibi is still in the PR game. Hamas is ISIS. The success of Israel is the success of the civilized world. Motherfuck the world. If they're not on our side after the enemy live streamed themselves slaughtering us online, we don't need them. If someone is so morally bankrupt they can watch young women stripped, beaten, and paraded through the street to cheering crowds and still even be on the fence, why waste your breath arguing with them whether or not other stuff they didn't proudly document actually happened? Enough! Hasbara is dead. Nobody thanked us for giving up Gush Katif. Nobody dropped the notion that we want to expand endlessly after seeing us drag our own citizens screaming and crying out of their homes. We're in a fight for our lives, not a popularity contest. We Jews historically suck at those. That being said, thanks for your help, America. And to my home country of the UK, Germany, France, Italy, whoever sent military backing, thank you. From the bottom of my heart, I mean it. Any assistance in this fight for our existence is invaluable. But we must be extremely wary of becoming reliant on outside help, lest we end up like Ukraine. Biden has warned against occupying Gaza, saying it'll be a mistake. Well, can't be as big a mistake as ending the occupation in 2005 was. Yet, our government has a history of pandering to foreign pressure. That concerns me deeply. We can't be listening to anybody this time around. When we go into Gaza, don't let go of it. Take it all. Then no doubt there'll be pushback from the other territories. So we take them one by one as each one attacks us. We go in and don't come out till the job's done. We take Jenin, take Hebron, take Ramallah. Hezbollah want to come out and play? Take Lebanon, Iran, you name it. We have the capability. We took on 5 Arab armies 53 years ago with retired World War II equipment against state-of-the-art tanks and planes and defeated them in 6 days. We took the entire Sinai and didn't worry a peep about demographics or our army being spread too thin at a time when both our population and army were substantially smaller. And now we have nuclear, and if you ask me, we don't have enough of it. Nuclear may be a curse to humanity, but it's a blessing to the Jews. In a world where everyone wants us dead, mutually assured destruction is the only way to go. And we need enough to wipe out humanity entirely and send a crystal clear message. If the Jews go down, the world goes down. Frankly, I don't know where I'll get the strength to continue once this ends. The very prospect that one day we cease fire, leave Gaza, board it up and wait for them to come crashing our border anytime in the future makes me sick to my stomach. It would be the definition of madness to expect different results this time around. Yet, I'm almost positive that's exactly what will happen. This pattern of suicidal compromise has been going on since long before I was born, and I just don't see the current government as the ones with the cojones to finally go whole hog. So, I turn to the Israeli public, my fellow citizens. I never served in the army. Never fired a gun. I have no political credentials. I take care of old people in Eilat, but I know how Israelis love to protest. And I know that many of you are feeling much the same way as I am now. As for those toffs who still want peace and love, well, I have nothing to say to them at this stage. I'm talking to those of you still logical. Those of you who don't repeatedly hit your heads into a dry plaster wall like a retarded fly. To you who still have a backbone. Give them hell. Make it known that we are not leaving Gaza this time. I don't know what a judicial overhaul is, but I know it was frozen because Bibi feared, in his own words, civil war. Soon we can go back to the days when petty political jargon was our biggest problem. But first, now is the time to give him a real civil war. Please, I beg you, if you're in government at any level, sabotage anything, everything. If you're on the border now, ready to go into Gaza, make it clear you have no intention to ever leave. Disobey your commander, get court-martialed, do whatever it takes. For the sake of my mental health, if nothing else, let's bring civil disobedience to levels that even a country full of stubborn Jews will rattle to its core. Despite the rocky and now somewhat traumatic 4 3/4 years I've been living here, I have no plans to go anywhere. I moved to Israel for 2 reasons. To escape miserable English weather, and because Israel's a fantastic country. Israel is known for great cafes, restaurants, bars, nightlife, art, culture, museums galore. All futile at times, as it seems every other day, everything is closed, you're warned not to go outside, or swathes of the country aren't even worth visiting half the time because there's so many rockets that their residents practically live in bomb shelters. I realize, like with English weather, people tend to forget and move on over time. I sincerely hope that doesn't happen here. I hope for those who still have a spine, October 7th remains a watershed moment, a moment we all declared in unison that Jews being murdered is not okay in any quantity. Pathetic that we had to go through another Holocaust to realize that. Does Israel need someone fresh off the boat like me to break you out of your Stockholm syndrome and point out that no country on the face of God's green earth would put up with this, and neither should we? It's time Jews grew some balls. If this isn't the last straw, I shudder to think what is. Let's make this country what it can be. Let's make Israel the greatest country in the world. Let's take out the trash. I implore you with every fiber in my being. End it. De-Palestine. End Palestine. Total Nakba. Now!